Hello, everyone, and welcome to another Qgiv webinar. Today's topic is one that I could talk about for hours and hours, and I would never get bored, and it's about data. It's one of the most important assets your organization needs in order to make decisions about your fundraising campaigns or events. Data is what provides the insights needed to make strategic decisions, and without it, it'll feel like you're walking through a dark night with no light and no sense of direction. And that's why we're here today. We're here to discuss simple tips your organization can implement to start making those strategic decisions. Before we get started, for those that are unfamiliar with Qgiv, we are an online fundraising platform. We have solutions for all size nonprofits, including year-round fundraising tools, text giving, peer-to-peer fundraising, and auction tools. You are at the center of everything we do, and our goal is to make fundraising as easy as possible so you can raise more money online. If you're interested in learning more, please visit us at www.qgiv.com. If you're looking for a copy of the slides, you can request those at go.qgiv.com/simple-tips-4-data. So if you can just click on that, go to that URL, fill out the form, and we'll send you a copy of the slides. If you have any questions, please feel free to email us at marketing@qgiv.com. We will try to answer that in as fast as we can as soon as they come in. And share your highlights and takeaways with the hashtag QGivWebinar, and make sure to follow us at Qgiv. A little bit about myself. I have been working with Qgiv for 4 years now, and man, does time fly. And I've been a marketing professional for over 7 years now. My area of expertise is in digital marketing and optimizing the user experience. So you can say data is right up my alley. I love to analyze data, dive into it, and learn how our marketing programs here at Qgiv are performing and how we can improve them based on that. And I have 3 animals. I have 1 dog and 2 cats, and I am recording from home today, so if you hear them, I apologize. They're certainly a handful, but I love them all to death. So let's start with why donor data is important. Besides the obvious benefits of tracking fundraising success and providing your organization with a sense of direction for making strategic fundraising decisions, donor data offers lots of information to improve your marketing and donor retention efforts. Things like segmentation, a donor's giving potential, and lapsed donor reports all provide critical information in order for you to improve your fundraising overall. Why is donor data important? Data is important and it provides those critical insights as we were talking about. However, data that is unorganized looks like a giant mess. There's a lot of different pieces that can be used to build something special, and it's important that your organization takes the time to identify the most critical data points to monitor success of your fundraising campaigns. With data, you can monitor the performance of your fundraising campaigns and events. I know this is obvious, but donor data will ultimately show if a campaign or event was successful. The most important part here is that data will tell you why. Data will help you tell the story as to why a campaign or an event was successful or if it was not. This will also help you make better strategic fundraising decisions, and those will be backed by data. Important questions that you can answer with this kind of data is, did this campaign message work? Did I send my appeals through the appropriate channels? And am I reaching the right audience for my nonprofit? Finally, you can use this data to improve your relationships with donors. How? Well, personalized communications, sending appeals through the right channels, and making sure that donors are informed about the ongoings of their gifts and how that affects your organization, and give them a real insight into all of the work that you do and how their donations and all of the money that they give to your organization affects those in your community. Ultimately, the whole thing that we want to do here is to help your organization raise more money with that donor-backed data. So data overall, it's here to tell a story. As we were mentioning before, data without proper presentation is a giant mess and can be really confusing. So it's really important when you get this data to organize it and arrange it in a way that makes sense to you. You can gain those basic insights into your donors and determine the success of your fundraising campaigns or events when you do this. But ultimately, what we want to do is to continue to build this story around our data and tell it with a story, because data with a story gives us much deeper insights into the things that we need to understand about what went right and what went wrong with our campaigns or our events. And to truly, truly understand it, we need to build a house. So what are we going to cover today? We're going to take a look at all aspects of donor data and how your organization can use this information to improve your fundraising campaigns and events. We'll cover what data you need to be looking at, how to use data to improve your fundraising, the tools to track and collect that donor information, and then we'll give you a look at Qgiv's data tools and how your organization can utilize it. We today are going to build a data house. And I know overall that looking at donor data and building what we're talking about to get to the insights that you need, it can feel overwhelming, but I can assure you that it is not impossible. And what we're going to do here is take a step-by-step approach to get to that end goal. As with building a house, it isn't accomplished overnight, and neither is building and visualizing your data. Overall, we want to go from nothing into this giant, nice-looking house with our donor data. So let's start. How do you start building a house? Well, you start with the foundation. A sturdy foundation brings longevity and a firm place to stand when times get tough. And with data, what that does is it provides an insight into all of the things that you've worked on in the past. And if you've built this foundation over time, you will always have something to reference if your campaigns are going through a rough time. Or if you're doing really, really well, they will show you the insights and why things are going well. So first and most importantly, this is what it looks like when you're not tracking your data. Or you can be tracking some of this data, but if it's in different systems and you have no way to sort of unify all of this information, you're not going to be able to utilize it. And it's going to look like a barren wasteland, right? You're not going to be able to use any of it. And without it, I mean, really, you can't. It's really, really difficult to use. What we have, though, with this is that we have the proper programs in place to start collecting what we need. Or in this case, we have land, we purchased it. However, we haven't started building on it. So then the next step for us to improve our campaigns and our events is we need to start implementing things. So like a house, we start with the foundation, right? We level the ground, we start pouring our concrete, and we lay this solid foundation on which our house can be built on. In order for us to use that data, though, or in this case, the house, to start building on it, we need to have the proper tracking in place to collect and retain that information. Things that your organization should be doing in order to track this and put this all in one place is fundraising software. One, you'll get donation forms or event registration forms. Whatever campaigns you're running or events that you're running, you'll be able to add all of that donor information in there, collect that donation, that amount that they're giving to your organization, and then you'll be able to integrate into a nonprofit CRM. A CRM is a great way to organize a donor's information all into one collective place. And it can give you much deeper insights into how they're giving, what they've given, the other interactions that they've had with your organization. Together, a CRM is going to give you a very deep look into everything that your donors are doing. And you also need to implement tracking platforms like Google Analytics and Facebook Pixel. So where you're going to see in the fundraising software and nonprofit CRM, you're going to get really great donor information. But you also need to understand how your fundraising channels are performing. And through Google Analytics and Facebook Pixel and there's Twitter Analytics as well. There's a couple of different platforms that you can use, Google Analytics being my preference of choice, but you will be able to dive deeper into how your organization is doing across different channels and sending out your appeals. We want to make sure that all of this information is collected, including the donor information and that transactional data as well. So we've built our foundation. We've gotten all of our tracking in place. Now the next step is we need to identify what data is important to our organization and then arrange it by the type of fundraiser that data is important. Some important data your organization should be looking at is total amount raised from all sources. And this can include both the online sources. So if you're taking cash on hand when you're on site at a an event, or if a donor walks into your organization and is giving to your organization through an exchange of either a cash or a check, they give over the phone. It's important to log all of that information into your CRM so that you can track all of that information. And then online, we're talking about all of that tracking before, where you're sending them through specific channels like Facebook, or coming through your website, or doing paid search through Google Ad Grants or anything like that. You want to make sure that you have that tracking in place online. Next, you're going to want to dive deeper into total donations and registrations, total donors, event attendees as well, new donors versus recurring donors, new event attendees versus returning event attendees, one-time versus recurring donations. So it's a little bit different from the donor side, where we're looking at how many one-time donations did we get through this campaign or this event, then how many did we get through this recurring for recurring donations through this campaign or event as well. And if you have restrictions set up on your form, what restrictions do donors prefer? And diving deeper in there. So identifying these, and then a really great pro tip here is to then organize this into your different campaigns or events that you have going on. So if you're always running a similar, like an annual year-round fundraising campaign, make sure to organize all of that data that's important to you, those being total amount raised, total donations, total donors, your new donors versus your recurring donors, and restrictions as well. Whereas with the event side, if you're looking at peer-to-peer fundraising, you're still going to use total amount raised from your peer-to-peer fundraising events. But other important things are, how many registrations did you get? How many event attendees came on site? How many were new attendees versus returning attendees? How many registrants signed up to participate in fundraising for your organization? All those are important data points that you need to track, as we'll call those KPIs later on. Those are our key performance indicators to tell us whether or not our data is showing us what we're looking at, and if a campaign or an event is successful or not. Now that we have all of this data, we need to arrange it and we need to make it look sense, because right now it just, it looks like a framework of a house. It's there, we can see it, it's starting to form what we want, but right now it's just a mess of different things that we're putting together to make it look like a house, right? So our next step is to organize it. And we're almost there, right? We're getting the drywall in. We're going to start putting in our different appliances. All of the guts are in there with the wiring and electricity and all plumbing and all that. So we're getting there, right? We're almost there, and we need to continue to build out what we have. So the next step in building our house of data is we need to understand what went well with our events or our campaigns, what didn't, what should we do to improve next time, and probably the most important thing here is we need to be able to compare our results. And so what does that look like? So there are a couple of different scenarios that we need to address here. So the first one is, this is a new campaign, a new event, and we just want to know what went well here and then what didn't. Then we also have an annual campaign or event. So we generally hold this every single year, and we want to dive into how this campaign or event performed this year versus what we did last year. So in both those scenarios, we want to compare that performance to something. So if it's an annual thing, like I said, it's pretty easy to compare what you did last year versus this year and see the results. You should be able to dive into the different appeals that you sent out, the different types of messaging that you used. If you were segmenting your audience versus maybe by generation, you'll be able to understand how those types of messages resonated with your audience versus what didn't. If you use different types of tools like text fundraising, or you try to expand into maybe TikTok or something like that, having that tracking in place to understand what was driving results and what wasn't is very important. And you'll be able to compare those results to what you did last year versus what you did this year. However, it does become a little bit difficult when you have a new campaign or event, because you don't have anything to compare that to, right? You do have the ability to see how different things performed with your emails and any of the marketing that you did around it. You'll be able to see the results within your fundraising dashboard to see how many attendees came, how much money that you raised. But one of the most important things to telling that story is to understand how this particular event is performing compared to others, or campaign in this sense as well. So the best way to do that is find something that is similar. And you can do that by fundraising type, such as comparing a virtual fundraiser to another virtual fundraiser. If they're different types, so if you host like a DIY fundraiser, but then you wanted to try a network fundraiser to see if you can generate more interest and get more money, those two are really virtual fundraisers and get your audience involved. So you should be able to compare those, maybe not apples to apples, but you should be able to compare the different performance metrics between those and what messaging worked and what didn't. If you have in-person events, even if it's something a little bit different, maybe you hosted a gala and then this year you wanted to host just a luncheon, something that's quick, maybe short, maybe you want to do a dinner and a movie, something like that. You can still compare those with the in-person events. And for year-round, you can really compare like appeals that you did. A Giving Tuesday is another one, or a Giving Day. If those are new, then you can sort of compare those to see which performed well and what the different types of campaigns did well and what didn't with this year. This should provide you key information into performance, even if the fundraisers weren't in similar sizes. Even if you had a lot more donations to one or not a lot more registrants to one, you should still be able to compare these into a sense to understand the averages. So if you have like an average donation of $106 in one of your big events, but in your virtual fundraiser, you notice that while it generated less people to it, you were able to get a higher average amount at $150. So those are key insights to look into when you are comparing these types of events, even if they aren't in similar sizes. Make sure that you're looking at the averages and what is being produced throughout, even if they're not producing the same total raised. And as you wrap your head around all of these data points, I know that it's a lot, right? We're going step by step here. Like I said, it's very important to take this one step at a time and wrap your head around each and everything as we're talking about. But as we're wrapping around this right here, it's important to have these available for a quick view, like on a dashboard, or if you have a collection of reports that you like to pull. It's important to get these into your platform that you're using. Organize all of these data points above into that dashboard or collection of reports and break them out by type of fundraiser that you host. So for example, you can have one dashboard for your year-round campaigns with all of the important data to that, your year-end campaigns, your peer-to-peer events, your auction events, and so on. So make sure to break these down, because what we want to do once we have these organized into a collective piece where we can easily view that data is we want to compare both at a holistic level with all of our events added or all of our campaigns added for that type, and then have the ability to drill down into a specific event and also drill down into how the different channels performed for our appeals and for our messaging. So it's really important, get those onto one dashboard, one report, so that you can see everything at a holistic level, and then you can compare year over year, or you can dive into different campaigns and just compare them one to one. And our final step, which is the biggest step that we have. So don't get me wrong, everything that we talked about is very, very important. We need that foundation to get everything organized. But as we were talking about before, it's still not the prettiest thing, right? We have one more step to make it look like our big, beautiful mansion that we started out, our dream goal, and that is context. Context is the final piece of our puzzle here. So once we have our dashboards organized for our different types of fundraisers, what we want to do is then add context to each event or each campaign that we ran so that we can understand the full story, because we can miss out on very important insights unless we do that. And what I mean by context is you have to have some type of note program or any type of logging to understand where things were during that time frame, how were we economically, what did we do differently this year than we did last year? Is there any extreme circumstances or things that we did differently than previous years that we need to note so that we can understand what major things happened? If you had a celebrity, for example, attend one of your events, that'd be a great thing to note because that would probably drive up registrations to your event. Or if we were in a down economy, it can explain why an event did a little less money than one that was in an up economy, right? So make sure to add those types of notes and the differences that you did between the different events. So for example, what types of appeals and invites did you send out? What messaging did you use? What channels did you send it out? Did you try a new channel this year? Did you take money from one paid program to another paid program? What did you do that was different and that made it so you can drive more registrations or donations to your organization? So make sure that you add that context so that you understand those different types of things. And then the same thing with audience. So you can keep drilling down into these different areas of how you're targeting and sending out messages by even going down to the specific audience. So if you're talking about a generational, we know that the Gen Zers tend to like more of the social media and text fundraising. So we're going to send out specific appeals and invites through those. But we have heard a lot about TikTok. So this year we expanded into TikTok to send out new appeals to try and reach a larger not Gen Z audience to attend our event or donate to our organization. And then you can analyze that for each event. And if it performed better this year, then you have a clear explanation as to why it performed better. So making sure to add context will help you really round out the entire story of your data for both your events in one view and then holistically so that you can see and compare results every single year that you have it. So let's look at this in a little bit more of a visual format, right? So we started with our foundation, implementing our data tracking through fundraising tools, a CRM, and data platforms. We then started building our framework by identifying our most important data for each type of event and campaign that we have. Then we organized our data into an easy way to view and understandable format. And that's putting our drywall in, our appliances, and really getting everything in there. And then we finally built our entire house by adding context to our data that tells a story to our organization. But there's always one more step. And these are more of your amenities, right? We built this house and now, you know what? We want more. We want a pool in our backyard. And the way that we do that is through advanced donor data. So we're taking the next step in our data journey with this advanced donor data. And these stats will help us dive into a little bit more of our donors' giving patterns and help us build deeper donor relationships because we understand them at a deeper level. So a few of those different types of data that we can look at-risk or lapsed donors. So these are donors that have stopped or might stop donating or registering for your events to your organization. So a simple tip here is build reports that monitor those types of donors and so that you can target them with appeals to hopefully win them back to your organization. Next, donor retention rates. These are really important as we need to continue to learn how we acquire new donors year over year, but how are we retaining them? We've talked about this a lot in other webinars that donor retention is the most cost-effective way for your organization. It takes a lot more money to acquire a new donor than it does to retain a donor. So making sure that you're on top of your donor retention rates, how are you doing, and how can you invest more to make sure that you're continuing to drive those donors back into your donor pipeline and continue to donate to your organization. Another simple tip here is retention rates are a good indication of how your campaign messaging is resonating with donors. If retention rates are decreasing, find out why and adjust as needed. Next is churn rate. So this is a calculation to determine how many donors were lost over a period of time. This is very useful data to determine if a particular campaign or event led to a decrease in the total number of donors to your organization. Similar to the retention rate tip that we had, monitor your churn rate to see how well a campaign or event is resonating with your current donor base. This can also be an indication of over-communication. If you're always sending out a lot of appeals and you're only asking for donations from your donor base, this can also be an indication that you're just sending out too many appeals and you're not sending the right messaging out to your donor base. So make sure that you're monitoring this, and if you see an uptick in your churn rate, make sure that you analyze the programs that you have going on and reevaluate to see if there's anything that you need to stop so that you can improve that churn rate and continue to get more, keep your donors. And finally, understanding your different donor levels. And if you don't understand them, there's the small donor. So these are normally giving smaller donation amounts to your organization. Then you have your mid-level and then your major donors, right? The ones that are really going to give the big money to your organization. Great data shows what your donors prefer to give. So a really big pro tip here, take a look at your different donor levels year over year and monitor any increases or decreases in each category. Donors in the small to mid-level ranges may actually have a bigger capacity to give to your organization. And if you lost a major donor, find out why and see if you can win them back. So we built our house, right? We've gotten all of our data into an organized format so that we can understand what is going on and identify our successes and our failures within our campaigns and events. So now we're going to talk about how we can use this data. And one of the first ones is improving fundraising appeals. And I love this topic specifically because fundraising appeals are how you continue to discuss the things that are going on at your organization. And this is a really big driving factor for the money that comes back to your organization. And user donor data is really important to improve the effectiveness of your fundraising appeals. One method that I always love to talk about is sending out segmentation, is segmenting your emails based on the segmentation within your donor base. And I absolutely love the topic of segmentation. I know I said I love donor data, but segmentation is just another part of that. And I absolutely love the segmentation and the personalization that can come with this, because it can be really frustrating for donors if they are not recognized for the donations that they've already given to your organization. And if you ever felt that frustration, your donors can feel frustrated that way too. So make sure that you're adding that personalization and you are segmenting your appeals to different types of donors so that they know that you are paying attention and that you recognize their support of your organization. Some of the things that you can do with segmentation is send targeted appeals to your one-time donors versus your recurring donors. So recognizing a one-time versus recurring is very important so that they know that you are listening. Next, it's similar to one-time and recurring past event attendees. If you just a little note in there, hey, I really thank you for supporting us last year. We're going to throw the same event this year. That little touch can be a big difference in the fundraising appeals that you send. And then finally, recognizing fundraisers from previous peer-to-peer events. So we know that it's an investment from those that do sign up to volunteer and raise money on behalf of your organization. So recognizing that support that they gave to your organization by fundraising is very important to actually get them back. And if there were things that they did really well, then you can always talk a little bit more about some improvements maybe to your fundraising that you have this year versus last year if you're using new tools. Just make sure to recognize it so that personalization comes through. Next, you can send out really targeted donor outreach. So another great use of our donor data is to target audiences based on their demographic and preferred giving channel. And like we were talking about with the generational giving, it's really important to understand how your donor base prefers to give to your organization, understanding which campaign messages resonate with each generational group, and how often do each of these segments give, because that'll inform you on your communication and when you should be sending out appeals versus when you shouldn't be. And knowing this information will help you really improve the asks that you're sending out, both to one-time and to ask recurring donors to upgrade their gift. So like we're talking about, use donor data to identify your donor's preferred giving channel, which messages resonate with your donors, and how often they prefer to give. The next thing is donor retention, right? So growing your relationships with your donors is really easy when you actually have the appropriate donor data in place. And another important part here is that you increase your donor retention rates, but you also reduce that donor churn rate. One of the easiest and simple things that you can do is simply thank your donors. Add information that speaks directly to what they gave, that one time versus recurring, adding that segmentation and that personalization. It really, really goes a long way with your donors. Next, sending out donor summaries for tax purposes is a huge thing so that they don't have to dig through all the receipts from your organization. You want to give them an easy way to track down all of this information. And if you do collect phone numbers on your donation form, or you collect like their address or what have you, you can follow up with them with a personalized thank you either by phone call or sending a gift through the mail. So both of these are another great way to get on your donors' radar and let them know that you are appreciative of the support that they give to your organization. Next is one that's really simple. We talked about this through most of the building our house. So tracking performance of your campaigns, you can use this to understand how everything is performing, and then you can utilize this to enhance the ways that you are sending out your appeals through which the donor's preferred giving channel, learning which messages resonate with your donors, and the most important thing is comparing how your campaigns or events are performing either month over month, year over year, or if you're preferring a longer time frame, then you can do that as well. And another great topic that I love is A/B testing. So A/B testing is the ability to compare one set of changes to a default form that you have. So for example, if you have one form that is always performing really well, but you wanted to add one additional question because you think it would help you with tracking your donors and giving them the information that they need. A/B testing is a great way to do that and to set up a way to track how that little change affects both the amount given, the conversion rates that happen on your forms, and so on and so forth. So if you are adding or removing fields, images, or you're adding text to your forms, make sure you have a way to monitor those changes because we want to know how those changes affect our form performance. The most important factor to determine whether or not the changes are positive or negative is the total amount raised, but you can also dive a little bit deeper into understanding if it improved or decreased your conversion rates, if it led to more one-time donations versus recurring donations. So there's a lot of things that you can look at. And some things that you can look at a little bit deeper here is that you can compare your forms and events year over year. So we talked about that in the building our house story, that we want to do that because we want to see how what changes led to an increase or a decrease, and making sure that we're taking notes and monitoring the story that we're building here. And then with those A/B tests, you can see what changes to your forms are leading to increases or decreases in your donation. A/B testing is a great way to do this. But what else? So we have a ton of information in our data platforms for you to dive into and learn more. So as we discussed before, identifying current major donors and also digging a little bit deeper to identify potential major donors. Like we said, small to mid-level, they actually may have a bigger capacity to give to your organization. So make sure that you're diving into your data to understand that. Identify and re-engage lapsed donors, those that have just stopped giving to your organization. Identify and engage at-risk donors. And then also calculating the donor lifetime value versus your donor acquisition costs. So this goes back to our new versus recurring donors, and understanding that retention is always going to be a more cost-effective way than going out and acquiring new donors. So what you can do is calculate the donor lifetime value. How much is a donor going to give to your organization if they continue to interact with you over their lifetime versus what your donor acquisition costs are. And what that will do is it'll show you how a retention will be a better route for your organization, and that it's more cost effective. So make sure to look at that information and understand and calculate that for what your different programs are. So we have everything, right? We've built our house. We know how to improve our different campaign messagings. Now let's look at the tools that you can use to track and collect all of this donor information. First, you have fundraising tools. So fundraising tools such as Qgiv can collect that high-level data for your organization. They can help you monitor performance of your fundraising campaigns and events because those are the platforms that you will be building your donation forms and all of your events through. They have the ability to collect donor information through those forms as well. So first name, last name, phone number, whatever you want to track in there, you can add that to your form and be able to map that back to your CRM. You will have the ability to track all of that advanced data that we talked about, all of our core data and our advanced data for our fundraising programs to track new donors, recurring donors, at-risk donors, and lapsed donors. And you will be able to calculate donor lifetime value and acquisition costs simply through those tools. Now, with CRM tools, you can dive deeper into managing your relationships with your donors. So with CRMs, you can manage all aspects of your ecosystem, including donors, volunteers, sponsors, grantees, more. Anything that you need to put in there, you can track all of that. You can then collect and add more detailed information to your donor record. So a fundraising tool will track how much money they have given to your organization and their basic donor information, map it back to your CRM. But if you call a donor and thank them and you're talking to them and you're picking up little tidbits from their lives, you can add all of this to your CRM to make sure that you are personalizing the next phone call that you have and asking about important things like pet names and things like that. Or if it's their birthday, you can write that down, give them a call when it is their birthday. Other features like this are donor timelines, so understanding when they've given in a visual format, giving summaries, how much they've given over your certain time frame, whatever you put in there, engagement scores, so how often are they interacting with your organization, either through appeals, volunteering, donating to your organization, and then organizing that into a score that you can easily understand and identify really engaged donors versus those that are not. Then you have other tracking tools that will help you round out all of this data. So Google Analytics, Google Tag Manager, Facebook Pixels, Google Search Console, all of these are examples of free tools your organization can use to dive deeper into the different channels that you are looking at to help track all of your donor information and your campaigns and events. Let's take a look at Qgiv's data tools. So we can do all of the things that we were talking about with fundraising tools and all of the things that we were talking about with building that house, right? We have all of the data that you need, and let's dive into it here. So first off, we allow your organization to set up customizable dashboards. So we have both pre-configured dashboards. So based on the type that you have, so you have your year-round campaigns with your donation forms. If you have a standard event that you're running, a peer-to-peer, an auction, we have these pre-configured dashboards your organization can dive into, and they're already set up. So you don't have to edit anything. These are just pre-configured that you can take a look at and understand at a quick level how things are performing. You can also customize these dashboards to whatever you need. If you want to add information to these pre-configured dashboards, you can, or you can create an entire dashboard from scratch. So there's a long list of data insights in Qgiv that you can build these dashboards off. Whatever your need is, you can build it in Qgiv. And you can create and maintain dashboards by each individual user at your organization depending on role. So if you have accounting, if you have your volunteer manager, if you have your development director, you have your events coordinator, all of them can build their own customizable dashboard, and that will not affect anybody else's dashboards in the way that when they log into Qgiv. So you have the full ability to manage it based on a per user role. You also have access to lots of data insights. Like I was saying before, there's a lot of information in Qgiv that you can pull out and put onto your dashboards. You can build custom reports with it as well. You can utilize our pre-built reports. All of this information can be used in a way that your organization can easily understand. You'll be able to display data in a way that makes sense. And depending on your needs, you can add or remove insights whenever you need. Like I was mentioning before, we have tons of pre-built reports that can help your organization quickly pull the most important information to your organization. Things like, transactions or recurring payments, a forecast of recurring. If you're looking for an invoice, all of those are pretty standard reports that we have within our dashboard. And if you are looking for those advanced statistics, you can also use that within our dashboard, our secure platform. And we have all these other ones like text giving if you use it, donation and event specific reporting like peer-to-peer and auctions. If you're using peer-to-peer and you want to look at how your store performed or how badges are doing, there's a lot of different pre-built reports within our platform that your organization can utilize. But if you're looking for something more custom, you can build anything through our custom report builder, and you can save those so that you save time later and you don't have to rebuild it every single time. You can add, remove, and rearrange the default fields so that it makes sense to the data that you're looking for. Add static fields to accounts for your unique needs. If that's specifically for like a third-party application, you can do that as well. You can change the column headers, and you can build reports like we were mentioning for specific job roles as well. So lots of capability, lots of customization across the Qgiv reporting tools and dashboards. We also have something that's called associated info. So if you're familiar with UTM tracking, this is something similar to that. But essentially what this is an easy way for you to track how your campaigns are performing and to drill down into how specific appeals that you are running are performing for your campaigns or your events. For example, here, all you have to do is add whatever type of event that it is. So it's /info/, and then you can add the appeal channel that you're coming through. So this one was newsletter October 22, for example. This associated information will map back to the donor within Qgiv so that you can see how each individual appeal is performing for each of the campaigns or events that you're running. This is a really cool feature. It's something that a lot of us were really excited about. And I can't wait for, if you guys have any questions on that, to dive into it. We'd be happy to. And then we have all of the advanced donor stats that we were talking about before: at-risk donors, that churn rate, donor lifetime value, lapsed donors, new donors, retention rate. All of that is tracked within Qgiv itself. And then you will also have the ability to add these insights to your Qgiv dashboard. Another great thing that we have within our platform is the ability to import or process offline transactions. So as we discussed before, if you are taking those cash payments or those checks when you're on site in an event or someone walks into your organization, there is an easy way for you to take that and then enter their donor information and tie it back to whatever their account is, if they've already had one in Qgiv, or it'll create one for them. So you can take those in-person gifts of cash, card, or check through what we call our virtual terminal, and it's helpful if you need to do any of that, or if you just get a surprise donation. We have the ability for you to easily enter that into Qgiv and track all that information and tie it back to the specific campaign that they're donating to. We also have a really great form comparison tool. So if you go into our platform, you have the ability to compare whatever you need, and you can choose our form comparison tool option in there, and you'll be able to compare your campaigns year over year. You can compare performance of different forms. You can run those A/B tests that we were talking about previously. And ultimately, what this is to do is to help you learn what successful forms and events have in common. And with Qgiv, we have a ton of CRM integrations with the leading nonprofit CRMs in our space. So Bloomerang, Donor Perfect, Salesforce, Razor's Edge, Virtuous, all of those are really big CRMs, your organization. If any of you are utilizing them, we do have the ability to integrate them with them. It is not through Zapier, it's through a direct integration between us and them. And if there's anything that's not on here that you are using with your CRM, we do have a custom integration through Zapier. And we have all of these other integrations with these great marketing tools and these accounting softwares. And like I said, there's Zapier as well to help you dive into and create a custom CRM, custom integration with a CRM or any other marketing tool that you use. So thank you all for joining me today. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to us. If you are a Qgiv customer and you saw anything that you like today, please email us at support@qgiv.com. They can walk you through all of the different tools that we discussed here and how you can add that package if you need to add our Giving Essentials package for some of that advanced donor data. And if you're not a Qgiv customer and you have questions about the presentation, please feel free to email me at marketing@qgiv.com. And when I get it, I will try to address it as quickly as possible. If you're not a Qgiv client and you are interested in using Qgiv, that's great. I would love to show you everything that we have. So if you request a demo through qgiv.com/demo-request, we can get you set up with one of our sales team members to give you a personalized demonstration of our platform. And if you have any questions about best practices, please visit qgiv.com/blog, and we can dive into a little bit more into what you're looking for. I really appreciate everyone joining me today. If you stuck around, I hope you enjoyed the presentation. Please let me know if you have any additional questions or any additional thoughts or topics that you would like to see from us here at Qgiv. I'm always looking to help you improve with your fundraising campaigns and your events. So anything that you're looking for, please feel free to email us and let us know. Thanks again. Happy fundraising.